Welcome to the Swedish Junior Hockey Podcast. My name is Jacob Dahlin, your host, and the guest today is Oskar Skiold from outside of Stockholm, one of the suburbs. Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
This episode is brought to you by Scandlux, your home for Scandinavian luxury products for the U.S. market. You can find us at scandlux.com.
So, as many guests that I've had on here, we've kind of grown this network of junior hockey players and senior hockey players and coaches and general managers and scouts. And and a great place to connect is on LinkedIn. And what caught my eye was an article that I saw. Okay, this guy's been playing. He was here for collegiate hockey, and I looked you up and saw that you had posted some stuff on LinkedIn. So I reached out, poached you a little bit, and sent you an episode and got connected. Right?
Yeah, that's correct. I was excited to hear from you because obviously it's a Swedish junior hockey podcast. So
yeah, it's a little bit. One of the things that I've found that it fills this void of, and then that's the reason why we started it, was there was no one talking about Swedish junior hockey over here. And then what I realized is that there's no one talking about Swedish junior hockey in Sweden. So maybe I should do this in Swedish sometime too, but that's just twice the amount of work. So we just, hopefully people will tune in. So let's start with, who is Oskar Skiold, and why do I want to have you as a guest?
Well, I'm a 26-year-old guy from Nynäshamn, as you said. Grew up here in a small town outside of Stockholm. And well, I think that the reason you want me on the podcast is that because when I set my mind to do something, I get it done.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened with the college thing that you mentioned. So
we'll talk.
I think that might be one of the reasons that I'm here.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about it. But what really intrigued me was, and then we talked a little bit offline as well, and that's your journey. And the important thing that I think listeners need to get out of this is that, we all have goals and aspirations, and we think that the journey is going to be without turns, and we think we're going to go from here to here to here, and then life takes you on a trip that we don't always expect. And you've had an interesting one, and I think you've learned a lot along the way, and it's kind of cool to see. And then, so what I thought we could do is divide this up in a little bit of your adolescence, and then the middle part of your older junior time, and then kind of now as a 26-year-old, a little bit looking back, just a little bit, but then also mainly looking forward. And how do you reflect back with your experiences and use that and leverage it moving forward? So I think it would be helpful. So Nynäshamn, for those who don't know where Nynäshamn is, where is that, and why is that important in this context?
Well, that's where I grew up, so I think it's a huge part of my story.
Yeah, where geographically? How far is that from the center of Stockholm?
I think nowadays it's like 40 minutes on the highway to Stockholm city. When I grew up, it was about an hour because we didn't have the highway back then. So it's a bit more modern now, and I think that the infrastructure has improved a lot during these years. So I think that it's kind of a bigger city now than it was when I grew up.
Yeah.
But it's known for its archipelago. It's next to the sea, and kind of also known for the ferry to the island, the Gotland, which is kind of a summer pearl in Sweden.
A place I've never actually been to. which is strange. And therefore, I've never been to Nynäshamn either. But growing up, so you grew up in a hockey family, right? Your dad played, he coached, I'm assuming.
Yeah, yeah. He played 18 seasons for the A team in my hometown.
And let me stop you right there, because a lot of people have been asking, what's this thing about the A team? The only thing people think about the A team is the old TV show, the A team, but
good show.
it's a good show. I actually watched it too. So, but what is the A team? Why do we call it the A team? Or in Swedish, which is A-laget?
Right. It's the Swedish structure. Basically, you enter a club when you're young, and then you have all the steps in that club. So you don't really have to switch teams like you do in the US when you grow up, because you have youth hockey there, you have under 16 team, and then you have juniors, and then once you're done with juniors, you go up to the A team, which is the pro team of that club, basically. And
depending on which level.
Thing
right?
with yeah, right. And in Sweden, you can move up between the levels, so you can literally play your whole career for your youth team if you advance through the stages of life. And if your pro club has a good team in a high league, you can stay there if you want.
So how was it for you growing up? So when did you get started
with hockey?
Yeah.
Probably started skating when I was about 2 or something, because I followed my dad to the rink.
Yeah. And then you played in,
and then I just kept going.
Yeah, and you just played with those teams. Did you play with older kids, or did you play with your age group?
I mainly played with my 96 born team, and then obviously we kind of played with the older guys as well, because it's a small club. So like if they needed players, they would bring up guys that had some experience. And but mainly we played for our own team, because my dad coached and we were a pretty serious team. So yeah, we favorized our own team, obviously.
Yeah. How was he as a coach? Because I coached my kid, right? And I knew my limitations, and I always thought that people over here, they don't necessarily like parent coaches. And I think there's good parent coaches and there's bad parent coaches, and a lot of people think it's automatically daddy ball, which means, oh, you're going to play your kid the most. And I probably treated my son, I gave him a harder time than any other player. People probably didn't think about it that way, but how was it for you?
It was good. He was a good coach, no doubt about it. He played 18 seasons in the A team, like I said, so he was kind of guiding us. And we had some other coaches too that also played for the A team here back in the day. So we just had a really tight group of guys that kind of learned hockey the right way from the start. And then we just kind of grew from there. I think it wasn't really any question whether we would play good hockey. It was more that the way we were going to do it. So, I remember, I think one year in the playoffs, we beat Djurgården in their own rink and kind of knocked them out of the playoffs. So I think that was one of our biggest moments for us as a team and as a small club. And we had a couple of games like that where we just would knock the Stockholm teams down.
Yeah. So how and I just think that that's when we're talking about like growing up in Sweden, whether you certainly the suburb, because we've had several people on that have grown up in or coached in small suburbs of Stockholm, and the importance of these clubs in developing young athletes and allow them to flourish with leadership skills, experience, ice time, on and off, and in a pretty protected setting. So, and I'm looking at your elite prospects, and you stayed there in Nynäshamn all the way
high school.
until high school. So you finished 9th grade there.
Yeah.
And then, so at what point did you start looking at, okay, because I'm assuming Nynäshamn did not have a hockey gymnasium?
No, they didn't.
So in some towns you have, okay, if I'm really good, I need to go to, you have the big hockey gymnasiums, the NIUs, and you have the local ones. But in your case, you didn't even have one. So you knew, I'm going to have to move, right? Or did you have a
Yeah,
choice?
kind of. I think they probably started one once I left, but that was not an option for me because obviously my dad didn't. He wasn't coaching in the juniors, so I wasn't interested in staying. So I kind of looked at other bigger clubs as academies and kind of took it from there.
Yeah, and of course.
And then I found one just an hour away, so that was pretty easy move.
But then also you made the Stockholm TV puck tournament.
Yeah, I played for Stockholm White in the
Did they
TV
have
puck that was in Karlstad.
Did they have
Where
two
you're from.
teams at the time?
Yeah, they always have two teams, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm from Leksand, not Karlstad. You just
That's the same thing.
No. It's that's almost like saying I'm from Gävle.
Yeah, that might be true actually. I don't know. I'm used to Nynäshamn and Stockholm, and then the rest of Sweden is kind of a blur.
Yeah. No, it's funny. It's kind of how it is, and so I'm gonna do an experiment here while I got you. I'm gonna pull you up from the TV puck tournament. So how old are you in the TV puck tournament? 15?
Yeah, 15.
Is that 8th grade or is that 9th grade? Probably.
It's the beginning of 9th grade.
Okay. So I'm looking at it's funny. So I don't know this guy, Kevin Stenlund, but he's got Winnipeg Jets logo on his elite prospect. He was on my
team.
Yeah. And
that year.
So was he was he drafted for them or?
No, he was drafted by Columbus and then they traded for him, I think.
Yeah. And he's still playing, I think. Yeah. Yep. Well, he's playing in the AHL right now, but I didn't recognize his name. But I always think it's funny to kind of look back at, these guys that played and then who do they play with? So who else did? So, all right. So you made the leap. So you move away from home. I'm assuming an hour away, not too far, but you can't stay.
Yeah. After 9th grade and going into high school. Yeah, I did.
Yeah. How was that? So you went to Södertälje, which is one of the original NIU programs, I believe, out there.
Yeah, it's a classic Swedish club, actually. Old history and all stuff like that.
Yeah. When I think of Södertälje, I think of Anders Eldebrink, but that tells you how old I am.
Well, that's kind of what my dad said too. He was like, yeah, Eldebrink and Glenn Johansson and those guys. They kind of led that club.
Yeah.
During their time.
And then, so of course, then you play on theirs, not automatically, but that's kind of how it works. Then you play on their J18. And their
I started under 18 and then moved up to under 20.
Yeah. So that was 2012, 2013, 2014. And the last year you played J20 Super Elite, which now is called J20 National. They can't call it something Super Elite. That would be too cocky in Sweden, I think. So they changed the name. But some success there for sure. I mean, you were about a point per game player in J18 Elite, and and J20.
Yeah, in under 22 actually.
Yeah, last year in under 20, 35 games, 20 points, not too shabby. Anybody that you remember from that time that were like, really memorable players?
Well, I think the second year in under 18, I played with Alex Nylander. So obviously, we had good chemistry and played on the same line and became friends. So yeah, it's kind of hard not to remember him.
Not a big deal.
Well, he came to my team, so it kind of worked out naturally. But he was only there for about half a season, and then he left for AIK.
Okay.
And played with Jesper Bratt. So he kind of he cheated on me.
Yeah. He hit the gas pedal and said, "See ya."
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. Here's the big change. So, and I think that this is somewhere I want to stay in a little bit and talk about, because I'm getting ready to record another podcast with someone over here that plays in that is a player development guy in the North American Hockey League. Because so at the time you just finished hockey gymnasium, so you could
high school, right?
Yeah, so you finished high school, so you could have stayed and played another year of juniors in Sweden.
Yeah, but then I left to play in the US.
Yeah. So not everybody does this, right? But I think that it's a common, the challenge between, okay, you played with some of these guys like Alex Nylander that is going in and he's going straight into AIK, probably played J20 Super Elite and then got into the A team or the
A team. Yeah, because he was a year younger when he moved up to the under 20 team, so he kind of automatically got a chance in the A team.
Yep.
And then from there he left to play in Mississauga in the OHL and got drafted because he had a really good season, and then kind of went into the pro teams in North America.
So, you have these kind of tiers of the draft pick guys that are getting a chance, they're getting a shot, even as a young player in the SHL or Allsvenskan second league. But there's a lot of really, really good players that play, and I think you're a great example of this, that play at a high level, J20 Super Elite, top league in juniors in Sweden, even as a first year, but it's extremely tough to get a good contract with either the SHL teams or the Allsvenskan teams, right?
Yeah, kind of like you said, depend on which club you're playing for. I played for Södertälje, and at the time they didn't do well, and I think that they played in Allsvenskan, but they were a bottom team, so that kind of helped me make my decision to not stay and go to the US instead and try a different path.
But you could have, I'm sure that you could have looked around and said, all right, are there other places to go in Sweden? But it's so tough because you got, like, when I've talked to a lot of players like you, the option is, I'm going to go and play the third level, Hockeyettan.
Yeah, that's where Södertälje went when I left. They went relegated.
Yeah. So the decision here is, I don't have a spot at the SHL or Allsvenskan, so I can probably play at Hockeyettan, but
and move up
and try to move up, which is what the majority of the people do. And they go in, they get lots of playing time. They're a young, promising player. They may even sign a deal with Allsvenskan, but then they get placed on a loan with a Division 1, Division 2 team. But then the flip side here, which is interesting, and I like to hear kind of how your thought process was in terms of deciding, I'm going to go a different path. So playing juniors in the US, how did that come about?
Well, kind of first it was that my interest in playing for the A team in Södertälje wasn't strong enough because of
Where they were going.
the time I had during those 3 years. So I wanted to develop more as a player. And then I kind of started I started talking to college schools. And that's kind of how I came across New Jersey Hitmen, where I moved to play 2 seasons before I got accepted into University of Wisconsin.
Yeah. So did you know anything about how that system worked? About, okay, I want to go play collegiate, but everybody plays juniors over there. You know, it's hard for them to just go and say, Oskar Skiold, we'll give him a shot straight in from University of Wisconsin. They want you to go play juniors over there, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you play in Sweden, you might have a better chance of going straight to school. There was actually Division 1 teams that tried to get me in right away, but for me, I didn't have the amount of credits that I needed to come play at a college. So I think that's why I kind of went juniors first and try to get my grades and stuff up, and obviously get used to the American culture before going to school.
Yeah,
because it's a big step.
It is. What? Yeah. What was the biggest? So now we're kind of moving away from your childhood and into now the independent. You took a step from leaving high school, hometown, staying with your parents, going to Södertälje an hour away,
Living on my own.
Living on your own, but now moving.
Or actually at a boarding school, but yeah, that's the same thing.
Yeah, at least you're not living at home, right?
Right.
And now you decide, I'm going to leave the country altogether and go play juniors. Big step. And at the time, you were probably what, 18, 19? No, 19 or 20?
19.
19. So what did your parents think about that at the time?
Well, they were crying at the airport when I left. So
Mine did too.
That was tough. Actually, I just kind of went blank and turned around and went for the security. And once I looked back, they were gone. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing? And then I was just kind of decided that I was going to give it my all, because there was no turning back.
Yeah.
I think, even though I was still at Arlanda Airport in Sweden, there was this feeling that, okay, it's starting now. And then
you're already gone, right?
Yeah, then I'm gone.
Yeah.
But that was that was a good decision I took. It was the time was right for that.
Yeah. So 2 seasons in, of course, back in those days, they didn't have the NCDC. So the Hitman now they moved up when they created USPHL Elite and Premier. Back then it was only Elite and Premier and no NCDC. Now they're in the NCDC. But a couple of really, really good. That must have been like where you really exploded. Or what, did you just come over and have tons of confidence? Or, I mean, because you guys won the championship. Was that the first year or second year?
First year we won the championship. That's correct.
Yeah, but 42
and then the second year,
I have to put my glasses on here. 42 games and 40 points. And then second year, 45 games and 62 points.
Yeah, that's kind of how it went down. I scored over 100 points in under 2 seasons. So I think I really made the most of that time. And obviously the program kind of helped me see my goal of playing Division 1 hockey. So, I mean, the second year I got to be the alternate captain. I don't know how that happened, because I was the only foreign guy on the team during the first year. So I must have made an impression. And then I won the scoring league that year too. So I think that actually going to college was just kind of a bonus.
Yeah.
To be honest.
So, and then you ended up, so you you had the carrot in front of you. The goal in front of you was, I want to play in college. but you realize also,
Yeah, that's why I moved pretty
yeah,
much to kind of test it out. I
yeah,
didn't know much about college. I see some Frozen 4 games when I was young on the TV after school, but I mean, I had no idea about the culture or anything when I came there. So
yeah.
it's just a amazing time. Really, it was beautiful.
So I'm, in your journey, you're kind of taking, like, everybody's going the same place. You're going to high school. You end up going to now it's very linear, right? You're going into NIU, but now you take, instead of like some people, they go this way, you end up going this way, and you go to and you have this goal in front of you. But then you realize, we can go into this as much as you want to, but I think that the kind of the hurdle that you realize you got to get into is academics, which,
Yeah,
going into university it's tough.
it's hard.
And they also have a lot of restrictions, and it's really hard to navigate of, what do you, I mean, I look back at, of course, I'm older than you, but I went through the same kind of process of trying to navigate through, how do you apply for college, and how do you get in, and how do you have all the prerequisites, and so on and so forth. And then you have this thing called the NCAA clearinghouse, right? And then there's politics involved in that kind of stuff. So you end up getting accepted to Wisconsin, but then you're practicing with the team, you make the team, but you can't play.
Yeah, like in my case, I didn't get my amateurism cleared until that season was done. So I think after our final playoff game, which we lost against University of Michigan in Michigan, we kind of just spent the night there, and then I got an email that said, "You're now accepted, or you're now cleared to play collegiate hockey." And then obviously the season was already over, so I was just like, has this been the case all year? I couldn't believe it. So yeah, that was obviously a shame, because I mean, I worked pretty hard to get in there, and I worked hard during that year too to help the team and play. So,
And then,
but I still had a good time. It was my first college experience, so yeah, I can't really complain. But it obviously sucked that I couldn't play any games.
yeah. But I think if we go back to kind of your journey, frustrating, but in value, I'm sure that you learned probably more about life going through all that than the classes you were taking at the university.
Yeah, well, I mean, the classes was definitely a challenge in itself. I learned a lot there too, and it was obviously fun to have, classmates coming from all over the world, and speaking different languages, and I think that really kind of helped me with the hockey part too, because there was so much things going on that I didn't really think about that I wasn't playing, and I think that's kind of why I managed to persevere that until the end of the semester. So
Yeah. All right, and
so
then
and obviously Madison is a yeah, it's a pretty nice campus. So yeah, whatever.
so what was your biggest takeaway from so how much difference was it between junior, so J20 elite, and NCDC level? Similar levels?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, the ice surface that is smaller in the States is obviously kind of the biggest thing. Kind of changes the game a little bit. So I would say it took me a whole year to get kind of into that type of hockey, and then from there it was just an ice tilt.
Yeah. What about then making the transition to collegiate? How big of a difference is it between NCDC, meaning Tier 2 junior hockey in the US, versus NCAA D1? What's the biggest differences?
I mean, the kids there are drafted, so there's a pretty big step, but it obviously depends on which school you go to. Wisconsin has a history of sending guys to the NHL, so it's a competitive program. There's a lot of other schools that has just good kids and academic resources to kind of further your education.
So how?
But I ended up at a one of the best programs in the entire country.
Yeah, and how did they run? I mean, NCDC, which is long bus trips, little
No,
bit
we
more.
just played at the East Coast.
Oh, so you didn't have to travel too far.
No, we didn't travel. We just played at the East Coast, so it
Okay.
was pretty nice. The last year of that league was when I played there, and then they changed the name to NCDC, which is now kind of a bigger junior league in the US.
Yeah. So
But at my time, it was only for East Coast junior 18s.
so how were the facilities different?
It was just small rinks with locker rooms
In
and a
NCDC?
concession stand.
Yeah. And then you go to Wisconsin and it's almost like a professional team, right?
Yeah, it's more than a professional team because they get like 15,000 people spectating the game. I mean, I've never seen anything like it, not even at the professional level.
And you have staff with a big staff, trainers, everything it's a different level, right?
Yeah, it's basically like a national team kind of setup.
Yeah.
You fly with the team to other schools and play against other schools.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that I wanted to hone in on, especially when you're thinking about like Hockeyettan or NCAA collegiate, you get treated a little bit different. And
I don't think it's even possible to mention those leagues in the same sentence.
no, and then the other part I think is that playing as a young guy in the league, you're a young guy with a lot of older guys. In college, pretty much everybody's the same age. So you're 20 to 24, 20 to 25. Yeah. And the difference between the oldest and the youngest, none of them have families, so they're all kind of a closer knit group. And I think that adds to the experience of, what makes collegiate hockey a very, very attractive option for people to choose. Certainly, you don't make any money because you're not allowed.
It's an amateur level because that's why they have the clearinghouse, to make sure that you haven't received any money or played for money before you enter college. So you have to be an all-round kind of guy with the school and sports included.
So what kind of person do you think it's attractive? If you're looking at, for those that are listening, what kind of person or what kind of player do you think would be a good someone that you said, man, you ought to consider going to play in college in the US?
You mean from Sweden?
Yeah.
I can't tell you.
But who would not be a good fit? Because you have to be able to.
Probably this local guy that hasn't been around much, not even in Sweden, just kind of goes to the same rink every day and put up points, but hasn't the kind of mentality of expanding himself.
And also, what about academics? I mean, it's not easy. You can't, I mean, you can go over there and play juniors and not worry about academics, but if you're going to go to college, you better have your head on your shoulder, right?
Yeah, so obviously you have to have kind of a similar setup as the US kids to be able to go into college. So for me, I had to kind of change my thinking to a more variable kind of mindset as I graduated high school in Sweden, because I thought I was ready to go into college, and then I came there and I realized that this is gonna get me nowhere. Doesn't matter how good I am at hockey. So then I started with the ACTs, and then kind of moved forward to taking college classes just to increase my chances of getting accepted.
So what's the ACT for those who don't know?
Well, it's the English
Proficiency and the testing.
No, it's the requirement to get into university. It's like yeah.
So you have the SATs and you have the ACTs.
Yeah, that's the same thing.
Yeah, and so you had to, but
it's
was
a
it
test.
easy? It's a test, and you get a score, and if its score is bad, they may not qualify you or may not accept you in the school, right?
Yeah. But I feel that I got kind of lucky there, because depending on which school you go to, you have to have a different type of score. The better the school, the better the score has to be. If you're a hockey player, you can kind of get away with it. And for me, I think that kind of helped getting me into Osjkar, because obviously I transferred there because I had some college classes. So the ACT didn't have to be as high, but it was high enough to get in. So that kind of worked out.
But you also mentioned to me that you had the option to go into Brown University.
Well, that was after Wisconsin, but that was kind of a long shot, because I got good grades in Wisconsin, and it was kind of an attempt to just kind of stay in the US, but
I think
the grades weren't good enough, so I got rejected.
Yeah, and I think that that's important to mention, is that, you know, if you want to go to Harvard or you want to go to Yale and you want to go to Brown, you know,
those are Ivy League schools. It's like impossible to get in.
Yeah, you have to be,
even if you have a 5-star sport with you. It's hard.
Yeah. So I think that it's for those that are interested, I think that you have to do a lot of homework, and you have to be realistic on what is attainable, both from an athletic standpoint, but also from an academic. But you bring up a really good point about also the mindset of personal mindset of being ready to take that leap. And I think it's interesting because you're kind of a guy that when you, like you said, you're pretty goal oriented, and when you see something, you're just gonna go out there and grab it. And I think it's really interesting how you have self-realization or the discovery of, oh, where I am today isn't going to lead to where I want to go. So how do I now refocus? Now, looking back,
that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, I mean, and looking back, that's kind of life, right? And so then you hit a few bumps in the road when it comes to, you know, couldn't get in or couldn't get on the ice and playing in the games, and then you ended up going back to Sweden with some family issues too. But But I want to kind of now focus in on, you know, the phase of your life when you're looking back at the experience, and how do you take that, refocus, and leverage the experience, right? Even though you don't have a Stanley Cup ring at this time, which when you were 10, you probably thought, I want to win the Stanley Cup. But you've gotten a, and you don't have, but you got a Stanley Cup version of experience, versus the kid that has stayed in their hometown and didn't go anywhere.
Right.
And
yeah, I think that's a fair way to put it.
yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. Of what, when you look back, not looking back in a negative sense, but really in a positive sense, what are the biggest things that's given you to where you are today?
So I think that for me, basically kind of getting the best of both worlds. First, growing up in Sweden, kind of just playing around with friends, playing street hockey all day after school and whenever we didn't have games or practices, to moving to the US and kind of get their part of the growing up side of things. And then kind of, you know, just going into university and just kind of putting words to it. I think that's kind of how the story took shape. And well, after that, I mean, it's basically just about taking day by day, moving ahead. It's not easy to kind of set out and do like the toughest challenge there is, but it's definitely worth it. I mean, it's you're gonna give it's gonna give back so much more than you first expected. So
What's been the hardest part?
Well, I think the hardest part is really like overcoming yourself and and winning against your own kind of perspective, because you're gonna realize that it's not what it seems. It's just that's kind of the main thread in life, I think, for most people. Is that, you know, like once and for all, you're gonna find out that it might not be the way it was when you were 5, and then you have to accept it, and then you just have to, you know, adopt into what lies ahead, so that you can still make something of everything that you've already done, or what you already are, I should say, because it's already there. I think it's a natural process that kind of develops into what's meant to be. So I mean, you can try and force things your whole life, but it's not gonna work out. So
what if we now look forward a little bit? So what's meant to be for Oskar Skiold?
I think it's meant to be that I'm going to live a really good life.
Yeah,
because that's kind of the groundwork I've put in.
Yeah.
So that's my plan going forward.
I just think it's great. I mean, you got a great attitude about it, in terms of like, it's not been easy, right? And it's been some turns along the journey, but it certainly shapes you as an individual, and it's going to be interesting to see how you leverage these experiences in life, and the people that you've met along the way, in where it's going to take you in the future. So I've asked this question to some of the other folks. It's been a while since I asked it. I don't know why I got away from it, but I just think it's a good question. That is, you know, you're 26, but let's say if you met Oskar when he was 17 or thereabouts, younger Oskar, more impressionable, you probably had blinders on at the time, but now you're more experienced. But you know, what are the things that you wish you knew back then that you didn't know, but you know now that you could guide young Oskar a little bit in the journey? What advice would you give him?
Just to really enjoy the time, because it's gonna work out. It's never a question once you put in the time and effort. I think it's a natural process. Like I said before, it happens when it's time for it, and then you just got to be ready, you know. I think it's not worth it to kind of distract yourself going forward, but that's also kind of the process in learning. So I think for me, it's been kind of a battle of what's going to happen. But then once it happens, it's just kind of, yeah, I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
I never hesitated. So it's just about being patient.
Yeah.
At least for me.
So patience and enjoy yourself. Two pretty important.
Yeah, but I mean, it has to be discipline, obviously, because I mean, if you have certain goals, you can't really be on a different track at the same time just to kind of enjoy yourself. It's about enjoying what you're doing in your own process.
Yeah, I think it's really, really good advice. And don't be surprised.
Yeah, but it's not for everyone. It's not like you can tell anyone on the street, just do this and do that and you're gonna be fine. It's like, this was my journey, and this was something that kind of started when I was young and kind of was natural for me in my childhood, and then it became more of a challenge once I moved, and then I kind of did everything I could to get things back to normal, and now I'm here.
Yeah, well, and I agree. I think everybody has a unique and individual journey, but don't be surprised, and don't be surprised at the opportunities you're going to have to be able to give back as well. That, you know, you're in a season of life too where you've experienced a lot, and there's a lot of 16, 17, 18-year-olds that you know, you may have the ability to influence in the future, to be able to guide them in their journey, right? And through living your life, you know, through living your life and your experiences, and it may be tough, but I think that there's a lot of lessons in your journey that a lot of people can learn from, and that is, man, there's very little that I can't do if I put my mind to it, and if I just take that step. And it may not be exactly how I envision it to be, but it's the experience along the way makes you grow as a person for sure. So I think we're going to wrap it up there. The 3 seasons of Oskar Skiold as a young kid growing up in Nynäshamn, playing with some of the absolute best, and then deciding to, I'm gonna go and give it a shot in the U.S. Brought home a title in the NCDC or USPHL Premier, and who knows where the next step is gonna be, but we'll be paying attention for sure.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Well,
thanks for having me on this show.
Yeah, thank you for coming on and sharing your journey, and and 2023 is going to be a great year.
Yeah, for sure.